Good morning, you're watching Daybreak with me, Nadia Jani.
And me, Lou Brown, and we're ready to wake you up with all you need to know about the key headlines making their way across the world and in the region.
Here are your top stories. Two top BBC executives resign over Trump documentary edit.
The longest US government shutdown in history is on the verge of ending as senators vote on funding bill.
And a super typhoon hits the Philippines, leaving 2 dead and a large number of evacuations. First, this morning, the BBC's top 2 chiefs have resigned following criticism of a Panorama documentary that doctored a Trump speech in 2021. The British Broadcasting Company's Director General Tim Davie said his departure was entirely his decision.
Alongside this, Deborah Turness, head of news, also resigned, saying the buck stops with her. The resignation comes after a UK newspaper published details of a leaked internal BBC memo that suggested one of its news programmes edited 2 parts of the US president's speech. Here's more on that story.
The BBC has announced the resignation of its top leadership, Director General Tim Davie and News Chief Executive Deborah Turness. The controversy erupted after a leaked internal report revealed Panorama had merged 2 separate parts of Trump's 6th January 2021 speech to make it appear he urged supporters to storm the Capitol, with the Telegraph exposing the edit. President Trump called the BBC's leaders dishonest on Truth Social, thanking the Telegraph for exposing what he called corrupt journalists, also saying they tried to influence the presidential elections as well. Davie, who has led the BBC since 2020, had repeatedly stressed impartiality.
And deliver a BBC that is really focused on world-class, impartial, landmark output. And I look forward to us resolving this situation and looking forward to delivering that.
His resignation now marks a dramatic fall from that promise. Turness said the ongoing controversy had caused damage to the BBC and that the buck stops with me. In Washington, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt reacted on X with 2 words, shot and chaser, posting screenshots of the Telegraph's headline alongside the BBC's own story announcing Davie's resignation. Former BBC boss Roger Mosey says the corporation was slow to respond to allegations.
The BBC was slow to respond to the latest allegations, and I think they were flat-footed for 3 or 4 days when the story broke about the Michael Prescott dossier. That said, the Director General of the BBC is the most enormous job, and you're dealing with MasterChef, and you're dealing with Hugh Edwards, and you're dealing with all these other issues that happen. And I think it's almost too much for one person. And if you look at the recent history of DG, with George Entwistle having to resign, Greg Dyke having to resign, all the pressures on Tim Davie. It's a simple question. Is DG of the BBC too big a job for one person? And does it need the BBC to rethink the way it handles both its editorial and its chief executive officer?
The BBC board, chaired by Samir Shah, will now lead the process of selecting a new Director General through its nominations committee under the BBC Charter. Davie will remain in post until a successor is appointed.
We're now going to take a look at the stories shaping the day across the globe, and we go first to The Guardian newspaper, and it leads with Tim Davie's resignation as a BBC Director General after accusations of serious and systematic bias in coverage. And as you saw in the first report of the details of his departure and how the BBC has responded, him and Deborah Turness, who was the head of news at the BBC, also resigned, saying that the buck stops with her and that they take full responsibility.
Yes, he's been in the position 5 years. I'll just talk you through the actual incident. I mean, there was a whole flurry of instances under his tenure. We could talk about Hugh Edwards' scandal, the Strictly Come Dancing, but this incident in particular is an edit where Donald Trump, during the Capitol riots, appears to incite the violence, say we're going to fight. However, that was 50 minutes after, but the edit made it look like it was directly after. So the context very much taken away and the meaning changed, and that launched a big scandal and led to the resignation of these two top executives. So a large scandal in the BBC, and what comes next we don't know, and who will fill that position is still not yet known.
Yes, and the reason why obviously it's making the front pages of this headline, I think it's also leading on a separate website as well, is because the BBC is funded by the citizens of the UK. It's a license fee paying subscription there, and it comes under a lot of scrutiny. And as you rightly said, Lou, the BBC has come under fire for a number of things when it comes to Greg Wallace, Hugh Edwards, as you also mentioned, Strictly Come Dancing, and the behaviour and conduct, and showing that it's some form of cultural systematic things going on in the BBC. So as you can see on the FT, it says BBC boss Tim Davie resigns over Trump documentary edit. On top of this, Trump has actually responded and has welcomed the news, saying that this is what he was talking about when it came to fake news, that he did not say the words that the Panorama documentary had edited for him to say in that way. And he's happy that they've now resigned. He actually put resigned / fired in his Truth Social post, but obviously he welcomes the news, and it's anyone's guess as to who will now have to step into Tim Davie's shoes.
Just going to finish about looking at what the UK government officials are saying. So you have Ed Davey, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, calling for reform of the BBC. Kemi Badenoch, leader of the Conservative Party, demanded top to bottom change. And Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, said it was the BBC's last chance. And the UK Culture Secretary of the Labour Party said she believes the BBC is handling this matter seriously. So obviously a lot of scrutiny coming under fire at the moment.
Indeed. We now turn to the next story that is leading the headlines, and that is in Le Monde. So this is a French website. US senators reach deal that could end record shutdown. So we know that this has been going on for quite some time. I believe we're in the 40th week of it, so just over a month now, that it has had a massive impact on airports, on government workers, and the Democrats who were pushing for a change in legislation have now decided to take a short break and renegotiate certain things in order to lift the shutdown in Washington at the moment.
Yes, the US senators reached a bipartisan deal on November 9th to end that 40-day government shutdown, as you mentioned. The agreement would temporarily fund the government till January, so it's not like, let's say, an exact solution. There are midterms coming up as well. The shutdown had severely disrupted government operations. We know there were over 2,700 flights cancelled and nearly 10,000 delayed over just this weekend alone. And airports in New York, Chicago and Atlanta were some of the worst affected. There's also the SNAP benefits, which we talked about last week, which would hopefully get back going, as well as healthcare in the US. So a lot of people want that return to normality, and that federal employees also having their jobs back and their pay restored.
Yes, I'm sure a lot of Americans will be happy to hear that they are on a verge of an end to the shutdown, which has been very difficult for many who've had to use, I believe, pay like tokens for food and different things that they needed. Right, let's turn to the next story. Okay, so this one is the Philippines is hit by intense typhoon as nearly 1 million evacuate. So we know that the Philippines was also hit by another tornado last week, and that also led to lots of devastation going on in the country. And now we know that 2 people have died and many evacuations, nearly 1 million evacuations have taken place. This comes off the back of what's going on in Brazil as COP30 actually now starts today. And we were seeing a number of different weather-related catastrophes, from Hurricane Melissa to different tornadoes happening in Brazil. But that was also devastated in a small city there, as well as in the Philippines, and a number of other places around the world. We know that this particular one is called a super typhoon with winds of 185 kilometers per hour, and has made landfall in the Aurora province in Luzon, and that was yesterday evening as well.
Yes, you covered it pretty well there. Oh, we got an interesting graphic here. That's always helps illustrate our story. If we can scroll down a little quicker so we can show the viewers what's happening here. So the super typhoon, almost making this half S-shaped coming up. Super typhoon made landfall on Sunday, hits the Philippines, Manila, and then this Wednesday at lunchtime it's supposed to hit around Taiwan and then peter off into the sea. So like you mentioned, everything there with the COP coming up, this may well be a talking point, and we'll just say that it has also disrupted over 300 flights been cancelled and several airports closed in the Philippines. So this is definitely causing a lot of disruption in that area. Let's have a look at our next story then, please. The same story, but the A News website. Do you want to kick things off?
Yes, so as I mentioned, obviously it's a super typhoon from Wong, which ends up near landfill that has destroyed a number of things. And I think the focus is on the people in the sense of how it is impacting the local people there. They've just come out of one particular strong typhoon hurricane, now they're going into another. So it is quite a rescue mission to make sure that everyone reaches safety. And we know that obviously there has been a couple of deaths, but they're hoping that that will be limited and that people will find safety and they'll find recovery very soon. But we know so far heavy rain and strong winds began on Saturday in the eastern regions as people flee. So those were today's headlines. So we're now going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll give you more of the stories shaping the day across the globe.
Partnership with Azerbaijan will allow Israel also to enjoy some of the benefits.
What makes Azerbaijan a uniquely strategic partner for Israel?
Peace process with Armenia, which will bring more and more stability to both countries.
One of the key elements of that Donald Trump's Gaza ceasefire agreement is delivery of the humanitarian aid to Gaza.
More and more humanitarian aid entering Gaza from various checkpoints. We cannot allow a terrorist organization to sit on our borders.
Welcome to A News, unfiltered news and analysis from the region and beyond. From Washington to Beijing, Tehran to Kabul, to Tbilisi to Tashkent. Hello, I'm J-Dad. Challenging.
Today is the third.
We're with you 24/7, taking you live to the front lines of the day's biggest stories. Welcome to Gabala. I'm here. Azerbaijan and Armenia.
Reporting from Paris,
Dar es Salaam, Tel Aviv,
Washington,
London,
Moscow,
Kyiv, Berlin,
Rio de Janeiro, Beijing, Bangkok, Tbilisi, Tashkent, Almaty, Kazakhstan, Port Sudan, Tehran, Islamabad, Istanbul,
Kabul for A News.
Welcome back to Daybreak. Now let's take a look at the global stories. In the United States, President Donald Trump says a resolution to end the longest shutdown in the country history is very near. The closure is now in its 40th day, leaving federal workers unpaid and disrupting food aid, national parks and air travel. The comment comes as senators advanced a House-passed bill that will be amended to fund the government until the 30th of January. It included a package of 3 full-year appropriations bills. If the Senate eventually passes the amended bill, the package still must be approved by the House of Representatives and sent to President Trump for his signature, a process that could take several days.
Like we're getting very close to the shutdown. We'll never agree to give any substantial money or any money to really prisoners, illegals that come into our country. And I think the Democrats understand that. And it looks like we're getting close to the shutdown ending. You'll know very soon. Thank you very much.
The impact of the US shutdown is affecting thousands of travellers. It has led to long waits and sudden cancelled flights in the lead up to the busy holiday season.
US air travel has been thrown into chaos as the ongoing government shutdown forces major flight cuts. More than 5,000 domestic flights were cancelled or delayed on Friday at 40 of the country's busiest airports, including New York, Los Angeles, Chicago and Washington, D.C. The Federal Aviation Administration has ordered airlines to reduce flights by 4%, rising to 10% next week if the shutdown continues. The move is designed to ease pressure on air traffic controllers, essential workers who are still required to report for duty without pay. Many have called in sick or taken second jobs, citing stress and fatigue. From cancelled flights to long security queues, travellers have voiced worries about making it to their destinations.
I was a little nervous, but it's a trip I have to take. I have a relative who's not feeling well, so can't let the circumstances stop me.
Travellers say things don't seem to be looking up, especially with the holidays approaching.
It really stinks that the government is affecting travel like this. Everyone deserves to, be able to go on their flights, go on their way, visit their families. The holidays are coming up, and if this continues, this is going to end up being a big problem.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely gets worse. I mean, as controllers start to take time off, I can only imagine they're not getting paid. So that affects travel. For example, going down to Jacksonville, those controllers have a tendency to take off and get overwhelmed. So that affects all the travel going south.
For now, travellers are left navigating delays, cancellations and uncertainty as the political impasse shows no sign of ending.
The UK is sending support to Belgium in response to disruptive drone activity. Military personnel and equipment are already being deployed as NATO allies work together to strengthen security. The origin of the drones remains unclear, but the incidences have caused significant disruption at airports across Europe.
We know that there's been sabotage, the Russian state has killed people on our soil in the UK, and so the so-called hybrid warfare, this warfare that's below the traditional threshold, are things that we need to strengthen ourselves against, whether that's cyber, whether that's in space. All of those things matter to us. The Strategic Defence Review set out quite clearly that we face a future or present that is more volatile, more uncertain, and there are growing threats to the alliance and to the UK. That's why we need to modernise, that's why we need to ensure that we are, to use the term, warfighting ready, and that's why the government has committed to invest unprecedented amounts in defence spending over the next few years, more than I've ever known in my career.
Over to the Philippines, where Super Typhoon Feng Wong made landfall on Sunday with 2 fatalities reported. 1 million people had evacuated to safety. Torrential rain hit island Luzon with torrential rain and winds of around 185 kilometers an hour and gusts of up to 230 kph.
Syrian interim president Ahmad al-Shara arrived in Washington on Saturday for an official visit, the first by a Syrian leader to the US since the country's independence in 1946. The visit comes after the United Nations Security Council, the US and the UK lifted sanctions on al-Shara and his interior minister, citing progress under Syria's new leadership and removing them from the specially designated global terrorist list. Since taking office, al-Shara has moved to distance Syria from extremist groups, including former ties to al-Qaeda, and pledged to tackle remaining threats from the Islamic State group. Syrian authorities said security services detained suspected IS members ahead of his trip. Al-Shara and President Trump are expected to discuss regional security, counter IS efforts, and Syria's broader re-engagement with the international community. White House officials said talks will also cover military and humanitarian cooperation. The Syrian president previously met Trump in Riyadh in May, where the US leader praised progress made under his interim government. The Washington visit underscores al-Shara's efforts to stabilize Syria and strengthen ties with the US.
For those eagle eyes, you would have noticed that that report was not on the Philippines typhoon, but on the Syrian president visiting Donald Trump in the White House later today. Now, COP30 officially begins today in Brazil, but in the Amazon Delta, rising pollution, climate change and disrupted livelihoods are putting people and nature under unprecedented pressure. Orkan Amashov reports from the Amazon Delta in Brazil.
This is the place where the Amazon River actually unfurls into the delta. This is a place where the Amazon River actually meets the Atlantic Ocean, not far away from here. And the problems surrounding this river are actually multidimensional. It's not just about the water levels going up and down. It's also about this river, together with tributaries, being actually the lifeline to that massive Amazon basin, covering about 5.5 million square kilometers, which acts as the vital ingredient enabling our planet to receive enough oxygen. About 10% of our planet's oxygen actually comes from this Amazon basin. And Amazon, actually larger area, not just the basin, actually the rainforest together with the surrounding areas, they actually comprised of 7 million square kilometers, which actually accounts for 40% of South America, and much, much bigger than the entire geographical expanse of the European Union. So we're actually talking about something gargantuan and big. And the reality here that we're all facing is that these people's lives are not just about their own individual cases, but also about the entire human civilization.
Human health and the surrounding ecosystems are being threatened by what the locals say is the natural rhythm of flood and drought. But that pollution and climate change are disrupting that rhythm. The river that sustains life here is under pressure, and the people who depend on it are feeling the impact every day.
We can't catch fish anymore. The pollution is too much. The water is too hot. All the shrimp and fish have disappeared. We had to change jobs. Now we transport materials or work in factories. The river doesn't give us what we need.
Every 15 days the river fills, it floods the island, then goes down. This is our life. But now the water comes polluted. With chemicals, it's no longer safe for fishing or agriculture.
For experts like Helena Fonseca Rodriguez, the Amazon's well-being is inseparable from public health.
Changes in water levels and pollution have a brutal impact on public health. People get sick. The SUS, Brazil's public health system, is under pressure. COP30 must bring solutions that protect both nature and people. I really hope the COP brings solutions, above all solutions for people, for people's health. But there are so many negotiation tables that we don't really know how far we'll get.
Polluted waters, disrupted livelihoods, and communities struggling to survive. The future of the Amazon and the health of its people depends on action. Experts say that if the world does not respond promptly, the consequences will ripple far beyond these shores.
Staying with the climate, and global temperatures are rising faster at any point in recorded history. Scientists say the effects are already visible in heat waves, storms and shifting ecosystems. Let's take a look at the findings.
Global temperatures are rising at record speed, pushing more extreme weather and visible damage to ecosystems, with new NASA data showing the planet has already warmed about 1.3 to 1.4 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial times. Average global temperatures are climbing about 0.27 degrees Celsius per decade, nearly 50% faster than in the 1990s and 2000s.
Right, we've warmed the planet by about 1.5 degrees Celsius since the 19th century, and that is halfway to the Pliocene. And the Pliocene was the period 3 million years ago that was the last time that it was actually quite warm, and that was only 3 degrees Celsius warmer than the pre-industrial. So we're halfway there, but not in millions of years, in 150 years.
Sea levels are also rising faster, now about 4.5 millimeters per year over the last decade, compared with 1.85 millimeters per year since 1900. The warming is already pushing some ecosystems toward tipping points. Researchers warn the Amazon rainforest could transform into savanna if deforestation and warming continue.
The impacts of climate change on extreme heat. We're seeing it on extreme rainfall. We're seeing it on sea level rise and storm surges if you're in a coastal area. We're seeing it in wildfires. And it is now no longer possible to just say, oh, you know, this is just something that the scientists worry about. It doesn't affect normal people. It's affecting normal people, and it's affecting them all over the world.
In 2024 to 2025, around 3.7 million square kilometers burned in wildfires, producing record CO2 emissions. Heat waves and high temperatures are reducing worker productivity and causing tens of thousands of heat-related deaths in Europe alone. Experts stress that normal weather patterns are shifting.
Well, but there's no normal, because that implies that we're just going to stay where we are, and we're not. Things are continuing to get worse. For us to stabilize global warming, even at the level that it is now, effectively we have to get to net zero. We have to stop emitting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and that's a huge challenge. So, you know, that isn't going to happen anytime soon. And so that means that while that's not happening, temperatures are going to increase and the extremes are going to become more extreme.
And as temperatures continue to rise, the world is now watching whether action will match the scale of the challenge.
We're going to take a break now. When we return, we'll discuss the key regional headlines with a in-studio guest, Vasyl Guliev, to help us unpack more. You don't want to miss it.
On World Business, we meet the boardroom leaders making market-moving decisions. And find out how leaders are dealing with continuous technological disruption. and welcome to Prime Time. What a show we've got lined up for you. In a complex world, clarity is power. Live, diplomacy dissected in a spin-free environment. That's Prime Time with me, Guy Schoen, weekdays on A News.
What is power? Has leadership truly evolved, or are the old rules of geopolitics still pulling the strings behind the scenes? Who is really powerful? And what makes people feel powerless? Our new series explores the secrets, strategies, and consequences of power.
Welcome back to Daybreak. Now let's take you through the news of what's happening across the region. Now, COP30 opens today with a central question. How can nations work together for an effective green transition? Key focus areas include climate finance, technology sharing, and inclusive diplomacy. Major pledges have already been made, notably the $5 billion Tropical Forest Forever facility, with larger initiatives on deforestation still being discussed. As one of the world's top exporters of renewable technology, China is expected to play a leading role in shaping global climate cooperation, including with partners such as Azerbaijan. Joining us in the studio now to discuss this is Vusal Guliev, Policy Advisor at AIR Centre. I hope it's AIR, not Air Centre.
What's possible.
Well, good morning and thank you for being with us this morning. I just want to start with what do you expect from COP30 summit and how would you measure the progress made from the last summit to this summit?
As we all know, the whole planet is in the transition period. Many countries are deploying cutting-edge technologies. They are implementing emerging technologies, sophisticated solutions in order to facilitate the eco-friendly, to build eco-friendly infrastructure. And in this case, COP29 and COP30, of course, would be main facilitator in building a green future. And in these terms, many countries such as Azerbaijan and China are partnering, and green transition has emerged as a major strategic partnership between Azerbaijan and China. And in this case, China has already invested, and they also exported green technology to Azerbaijan, and they already built infrastructure in terms of solar plants, wind farms in multiple regions of Azerbaijan. And these projects already helped Azerbaijan to become one of the main countries who is developing green industry, green tech industry, and all these initiatives were possible through the multilateral platforms such as Belt and Road initiatives, and also through the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, as we all know that Azerbaijan is a prominent member of both Belt and Road Initiative, which is launched by China in 2013, and also Azerbaijan is a direct partner of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And besides that, Azerbaijan and China has been collaborating, developing green tech industry through the COP29 related agreements. So thanks to these business deals, Azerbaijan learn Chinese expertise in this field, and China or Azerbaijan also attracts Chinese investment and know-how technologies. And in this case, Chinese companies provided and supplied equipment. They supplied solar panels, they supplied wind turbines and battery technologies to the company who is building the Azerbaijani green tech industry, such as Masdar, the Emirates company. Even though, for example, the Gobustan solar plants are being built by the Emirati company Masdar, but the technology is heavily relied on the Chinese companies, such as Longi, which mainly produces battery technologies and solar panels. And besides that, there is also one more project in the region of Hızı-Apşeron region.
If I may, can I ask, what are the major challenges facing this relationship with Azerbaijan and China? How do they transition?
Yeah, the transition mainly comes from the technology export. But Azerbaijan also wants to develop the homegrown products. Azerbaijan wants to maintain to develop the local production related to the green technology. The Azerbaijan government also try to not rely only Chinese technologies. That's why Azerbaijan also partnering with EU countries. Azerbaijan is also partnering with Gulf states, as I just mentioned, with Emirati company like Masdar, and along with these companies, Azerbaijan have partnership with Korean and some Japanese companies too. In this case, Azerbaijan tries to diversify its energy security, not relying only one country.
And just to jump in there, based when you said partnership, how might this partnership evolve around now what's going on in COP30 and the global shift towards sustainable development for these two countries?
Yeah, as I mentioned, Azerbaijan is a prominent member of Belt and Road Initiative, even though initially Belt and Road Initiative was focused only building infrastructure such as railway and ports, but now it's developing the green energy corridors, and one of the main route is going to be the South Caucasus region, and after that, as we all know, that there is a giant project which is called Caspian Black Sea Energy Corridor, and in this case, this collaboration will enable China to be a part of the Eurasian green energy corridors by aligning the policies within the wider framework of Belt and Road Initiative.
Now, it's quite interesting at COP30, we've had the world leaders arriving a few days before the actual event kicks off. Does that diminish what could be achieved at this COP?
Of course not, even because the collaboration and the partnership has already started many years ago. Since 2015, when Azerbaijan President Aliyev visited Beijing, they signed dozens of agreements in terms of developing the green energy, deploying the cutting-edge technologies. We can even see this kind of deployment in a Karabakh region of Azerbaijan. Since 2022, the Chinese telecommunication giant Huawei, they already implemented, they already developed cutting-edge and sophisticated digital solutions all over the region, and all these projects are being developed under the multilateral platforms. So we will, in the near future, we will see more partnership regarding the green tech development between countries, especially Azerbaijan and China.
Well, we both want to thank you for coming in today, and your insights have been greatly appreciated. Hope to have you again in soon. Thank you for the time.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. Guliev. Now, Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan is set to travel to the United States on Monday. He is expected to hold meetings focused on bilateral relations and regional developments. Officials have not yet revealed further details on his agenda. However, Fidan last travelled to the US in September, joining President Recep Tayyip Erdogan at the 80th UN General Assembly in New York.
Over to Iraq, and special voting has begun ahead of a crucial parliamentary vote on Tuesday, with Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani seeking a second term. Members of the security forces and displaced citizens are casting their ballots ahead of Tuesday's vote. The vote is seen as a key test for al-Sudani and his government, with many young Iraqis seeing the system merely enriching those already in power. And many ordinary voters say they're frustrated after the 20-year experiment with democracy, blaming corruption, unemployment and poor services.
Tensions between Afghanistan and Pakistan have resurfaced after talks aimed at preventing further border clashes collapsed. Despite the breakdown in talks, the Taliban says a ceasefire between the two neighbours remains in place.
The latest round of negotiations in Istanbul ended without agreement after Pakistan reportedly asked Kabul to take responsibility for its internal security, a condition the Taliban described as beyond Afghanistan's capacity. Pakistani Minister of Defence Khawaja Mohammad Asif said the Istanbul talks aimed at preventing renewed border clashes had collapsed, but added that the ceasefire would hold as long as there were no attacks from Afghan soil. In response, Taliban spokesman Zabihullah Mujahid said the ceasefire remains in effect and denied any violations from the Afghan side.
A ceasefire has been established with Pakistan. There has been no violation from our side, and it is being observed. Pakistan wanted the responsibility for its internal security to be transferred to Afghanistan, something that is beyond Afghanistan's capacity.
Mujahid said the Taliban wants to maintain peaceful and brotherly relations with Pakistan, while stressing that Afghanistan will defend its sovereignty if challenged.
The Muslim nation of Pakistan are brothers of the Afghans. The Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan wishes them goodwill and peace, and within the scope of its responsibility and necessity, it pledges cooperation.
Cross-border tensions have risen in recent months, including clashes last month that left dozens dead. Officials from both sides have acknowledged the need for stronger coordination, but no long-term security mechanism has been established. For now, the ceasefire remains in place, though the absence of a lasting agreement continues to cast uncertainty over the frontier.
Staying on this topic, Turkey is stepping up its diplomatic activity in the region after announcing that a high-level delegation will visit Islamabad amid tensions between Afghanistan and Pakistan. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan also stressed that sending humanitarian aid to Gaza is a duty of humanity. He also added that the rapid completion of the peace process between Azerbaijan and Armenia will position Baku as a key architect of peace in the region.
Those were your regional stories. We'll be back after this short break, where we'll be joined by a former Turkish diplomat to discuss Israel's position on Turkish soldiers. Don't go anywhere.
Unfiltered news and analysis from the region and beyond. From Washington to Beijing, Tehran to Kabul, to Tbilisi to Tashkent. Hello, I'm Jay. Challenges.
Today is the third.
We're with you 24/7, taking you live to the front lines of the day's biggest stories. Welcome to Gabala. I'm here.
Azerbaijan and Armenia.
Reporting from Paris,
Dar es Salaam, Tel Aviv,
Washington,
London,
Moscow,
Kyiv, Berlin,
Rio de Janeiro, Beijing, Bangkok, Tbilisi, Tashkent, Almaty, Kazakhstan, Port Sudan, Tehran, Islamabad, Istanbul,
Kabul, Port Ainu.
Welcome back to Daybreak. It's just gone after 10:15, and we're now going to dive into exploring our global story in greater detail. Now, tensions between Israel and Turkey have flared up once again, this time over Gaza. The Israeli government has rejected the idea of Turkish troops joining a proposed multinational stabilization force after prosecutors in Istanbul issued arrest warrants for Israel's prime minister and several top ministers on genocide charges. Now I'll hand over to you, Nadia, who's joined live with a guest.
I am. I'm now joined by former diplomat to Turkey, Milli Demirtaş. Welcome. Milli.
Welcome and thank you.
Thank you. Milli, my first question is, has Turkey jeopardized its position to be part of Gaza peace process after issuing an arrest warrant for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other senior officials for genocide?
I don't think that any risks are taken here, because Turkey has already declared that the position is so legitimate, so clear. After also, many countries already officially declared that the crimes against humanity have been done by the Israeli side, by the Israeli government, also International Criminal Court several times. Of course, repeated, this process is not so legitimate as Mr. Netanyahu and his ministers always saying during these 2 years. We can say that we immediately need some United Nations activity here, because United Nations with Security Council resolutions, with maybe Mr. Guterres, Secretary General's, of course, initiatives, I think immediately we need such process, because with the unilateral maybe decision of Israel, the process cannot be continued in a more sense like in a humanity sense, because we already know that some atrocities have been taken. Unfortunately, many people in Israel still think that these are all taken by the some official, of course, positions of Israel because of their security concern. But the threshold is so openly exceeded with some humanitarian causes. Not only by military attacks, but with the tools of famine, with the tools of destruction of several buildings. No one can now live inside the Palestinian territories. So we can say that Turkish position is so clear, and Mr. Erdogan, President, already declared this position once again. Maybe it's the process which International Criminal Court will follow in this following years, and we hope that United States, Russia, and the other forces, leading forces in the world politics, will support such maybe legal processes.
Well, just on that, Israel has said, believes that what Turkey is doing is actually part of a bigger PR stunt, and they're now rejecting Turkish troops to be on the ground. Do you think that's the right thing for Israel to do, for there to be a peace plan in Gaza?
Of course not. For legality, for the legitimacy of the remaining, I don't know, there is no any remaining legitimacy of Israel after all these, atrocities. in one part of many important part of the world public opinion now. Everyone knows that something's done not so in a humane sense. Of course, for some diplomats, for some realpolitik thinkers, for some military commanders, I don't know, mostly from United States or Israel or some other European countries, they think that yes, Israel can have some realist stance to continue their security inside its region, but it is not about some realpolitik security after these 2 years. It's about some humanity concerns. What we are also thinking that Israel also, once again, must think if there are some legitimacy now remained in Israeli government or Israeli public opinion, they will also think that any force, humanely can be contributed, can be included in this forces in Palestine, because we already know that Turkey has also done so important and successful operations in several parts of the world. Think about Bosnia, for example. Once again, some Serbian commanders also very legitimized by some countries that they are also securing their borders. But we already know that the Serbian commanders were also accused with some crimes against humanity. And now, of course, in Bosnia, in many parts of the world, the Turkish forces are really taking some good and very stable peace operations and peace forces they are keeping. And now it has also turned for many countries, including Turkey, to keep the stability also in Palestinian territories.
Well, we know that this isn't the first time Benjamin Netanyahu has been issued with a warrant over genocide claims in Gaza. But what do you think Trump will now say about this? Because Erdogan is an ally of Trump, a close ally, as well as Israel. So where would Trump sit in regards to this particular predicament?
Sure, it is an important question, and one important question is also of many maybe experts, diplomats, and of course policy makers nowadays, because it's also, we can say, dilemma of realism or dilemma of realpolitik, we're always calling maybe in some policy studies, because one statesman can think the sides and the other sides will always be maybe cannot be put in a positive maybe pot because of this habit. But it is not about, as I said in my last response, realpolitik anymore. Any statesman, including Mr. Trump, of course, he has an important power now inside the world politics. We already know that he had many negotiations with several countries, from Central Asian countries, from Azerbaijan, Turkey, even to Russia and China. He really can have some positive effects on many countries, especially in these last months. But he really now thinks, I think he must really think about this Netanyahu government's maybe atrocity. I remember that Knesset speech just last week. It is not maybe so positive in favor of some humanity concerns, but we must be positive. I think also, as you said in your news section, Mr. Fidan, or foreign minister, will be there. In Washington today and maybe tomorrow. Also, the new Syrian president is there. We also know that some things are discussed inside the American maybe foreign policy corridors, inside this White House corridors. Now also Mr. Trump will think that he must maybe warn much more. Maybe he had not done this, before against Israel, but now I think he has an important responsibility to warn maybe much more in a concrete sense. In a realpolitik sense, he really must have humanity maybe concern against Israel, especially nowadays.
And just very quickly, Mr. Demirtas, where do we go from here? We know that Turkey wants to be part of the peace plan for Gaza. We know Israel is pushing Turkey away, and there are a number of other actors all within this. What happens now?
We believe the international community consciousness, Nadia, because this consciousness is important. First of all, with United Nations, we believe that Security Council, not only United States and Israel and some other European powers, but all these powers inside these United Nations will come. We must come together to discuss more on this issue. And I believe that Turkey, not maybe directly with military senses, but with all other forces, soft politic powers, the other powers inside this Turkish politics is now very, wide and strong in the last decades. And we believe that we can also contribute to this human transformation of Palestine.
Well, thank you so much for your insight and for joining me this morning, Mr. Demirtas. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's a wrap of our Global Talk. We're now going to take a short break. Don't go anywhere.
On World Business, we meet the boardroom leaders making market-moving decisions. And find out how leaders are dealing with continuous technological disruption.
Partnership with Azerbaijan will allow Israel also to enjoy some of the benefits.
What makes Azerbaijan a uniquely strategic partner for Israel?
Peace process with Armenia, which will bring more and more stability to both countries.
One of the key elements of that Donald Trump's Gaza ceasefire agreement is delivery of the humanitarian aid to Gaza.
More and more humanitarian aid entering Gaza from various checkpoints. We cannot allow a terrorist organization to sit on our borders.
Welcome to A News, unfiltered news and analysis from the region and beyond. From Washington to Beijing, Tehran to Kabul, to Tbilisi to Tashkent.
Today is the third.
We're with you 24/7, taking you live to the front lines of the day's biggest stories. Welcome to Gabana. I'm here.
Azerbaijan and Armenia.
Reporting from Paris,
Dar es Salaam, Tel Aviv,
Washington,
London,
Moscow,
Kyiv, Berlin,
Rio de Janeiro, Beijing, Bangkok, Tbilisi, Tashkent, Almaty, Kazakhstan, Port Sudan, Tehran, Islamabad, Istanbul,
Kabul for A News.
Welcome back. You're watching Daybreak on A News with Nadia Jani and Lou Brown. Here are today's top stories. 2 top BBC executives resign over Trump documentary edit.
The longest US government shutdown in history is on the verge of ending as senators vote on funding bill.
And a super typhoon hits the Philippines, leaving 2 dead and a large number of evacuations. First this morning, 2 top BBC executives have resigned after a memo that was leaked revealed a BBC documentary misled viewers by editing a speech by US President Donald Trump. BBC Director General Tim Davie and Head of News Deborah Turness both resigned last night. US President Donald Trump welcomed the news and said on social media, "These are very dishonest people who have tried to step on the scales of a presidential election." The BBC has denied the edit was politically motivated. Here's more.
The BBC has announced the resignation of its top leadership, Director General Tim Davie and News Chief Executive Deborah Turness. The controversy erupted after a leaked internal report revealed Panorama had merged 2 separate parts of Trump's 6th January 2021 speech to make it appear he urged supporters to storm the Capitol, with The Telegraph exposing the edit. President Trump called the BBC's leaders dishonest on Truth Social, thanking The Telegraph for exposing what he called corrupt journalists, also saying they tried to influence the presidential elections as well. Davie, who has led the BBC since 2020, had repeatedly stressed impartiality.
And deliver a BBC that is really focused on world-class, impartial, landmark output. And I look forward to us resolving this situation and looking forward to delivering that.
His resignation now marks a dramatic fall from that promise. Turness said the ongoing controversy had caused damage to the BBC and that the buck stops with me. In Washington, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt reacted on X with 2 words, shot and chaser, posting screenshots of the Telegraph's headline alongside the BBC's own story announcing Davie's resignation. Former BBC boss Roger Mosey says the corporation was slow to respond to allegations.
The BBC was slow to respond to the latest allegations, and I think they were flat-footed for 3 or 4 days when the story broke about the Michael Prescott dossier. That said, the Director General of the BBC is the most enormous job, and you're dealing with MasterChef, and you're dealing with Hugh Edwards, and you're dealing with all these other issues that happen. And I think it's almost too much for one person. And if you look at the recent history of DG, with George Entwistle having to resign, Greg Dyke having to resign, all the pressures on Tim Davie, it's a simple question. Is DG of the BBC too big a job for one person? And does it need the BBC to rethink the way it handles both its editorial and its chief executive officer?
The BBC board, chaired by Samir Shah, will now lead the process of selecting a new Director General through its nominations committee under the BBC Charter. Davie will remain in post until a successor is appointed.
Well, it's been a tough year, I think, for the BBC, just following on from that particular story with the DJ Tim Davie resigning. It's gone through a lot of controversy, and I'm quite shocked actually by how quickly things have kind of skyrolled into everything right now, with 2 top executives resigning. And I can say, as a former BBC employee, I am very shocked at the information in the news.
It's interesting that Tim Davie himself says he resigned. We don't know about Deborah Turness. Yes, I don't think she's come out saying it's her choice yet. I could be wrong, I haven't checked. But do you think that's the case? Do you think there was any pressure from the government?
I don't know, and I think as the day goes on, as the week goes on, more information will be revealed. I'm sure the Telegraph, will be able to provide some more insight. But yes, it's a very interesting time, and it's saying that maybe the job is too big for one person, which is quite an interesting thing. They may need to get 2 people to step into that role instead of just 1.
Would more bureaucracy, more help, do you think?
Who knows at this time? It's such a household name and feature, just not in the UK, but across the globe. And for this to happen it sends shockwaves.
It does. I think the fact that, like you mentioned earlier, it's publicly funded. This creates a lot more scrutiny domestically as well as internationally. So it comes under a lot more scrutiny as compared to other channels. Do you think this would be met with the same furore as?
Possibly not, but we know so much of the IP of the BBC that it's very much impartiality, making sure it's unbiased. So for this to go in the other way, that's why it's so heavy.
And the edit is quite striking actually. When you do watch it, You're almost lost for words as journalists. I was lost for words when I saw it.
Yeah, definitely. Not a good time for the BBC at the minute.
No, not at all. But we'll keep you updated as more evolves on the story. Now, the US Senate has reached a deal to end the longest shutdown in US government history. It comes after a group of Democrats broke their party's blockade and voted with Republicans to advance legislation to reopen the government. The 60-40 vote paved the way for the spending agreement to begin making its way through Congress, where it would still need to be debated and passed by the Senate, win approval in the House and be signed by President Trump to bring the shutdown to a close. Senate Democrats so far had resisted efforts to reopen the government, aiming to pressure Republicans into agreeing to extend subsidies for Affordable Care Act health plans, which expire at the end of the year.
Looks like we're getting very close to the shutdown. We'll never agree to give any substantial money or any money to really prisoners, illegals that come into our country. And I think the Democrats understand that. And it looks like we're getting close to the shutdown ending. You'll know very soon. Thank you very much.
Now, Syrian President Ahmed al-Sharaa has arrived in Washington for an official visit just 2 days after the US formally revoked his status as a specially designated global terrorist. He is scheduled to meet with President Donald Trump on Monday and will become the first Syrian president to visit the White House.
Syrian interim President Ahmad al-Sharaa arrived in Washington on Saturday for an official visit, the first by a Syrian leader to the US since the country's independence in 1946. The visit comes after the United Nations Security Council, the US and the UK lifted sanctions on al-Sharaa and his interior minister, citing progress under Syria's new leadership and removing them from the specially designated global terrorist list. Since taking office, al-Sharaa has moved to distance Syria from extremist groups, including former ties to al-Qaeda, and pledged to tackle remaining threats from the Islamic State group. Syrian authorities said security services detained suspected IS members ahead of his trip. Al-Sharaa and President Trump are expected to discuss regional security, counter-IS efforts, and Syria's broader re-engagement with the international community. White House officials said talks will also cover military and humanitarian cooperation. The Syrian president previously met Trump in Riyadh in May, where the US leader praised progress made under his interim government. The Washington visit underscores al-Sharaa's efforts to stabilize Syria and strengthen ties with the US.
Now, Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan is set to travel to the United States on Monday. He's expected to hold meetings focused on bilateral relations and regional developments. Officials have not yet revealed further details on the agenda. Fidan last travelled to the US in September, joining President Recep Tayyip Erdogan at the 80th UN General Assembly in New York.
Over to the Philippines now, where Super Typhoon Fengwang made landfall on Sunday, with 2 fatalities reported. 1 million people had evacuated to safety. Torrential rain hit the island Luzon, with torrential rain and winds of around 185 kilometers an hour and gusts of wind up to 230 kph.
Typhoon Fengwang, locally known as Uwan, is moving toward the Philippines, forcing over 100,000 people to evacuate as it brings destructive winds and heavy rainfall. The storm carries sustained winds of 185 kilometers per hour with gusts up to 230 kilometers per hour and is expected to make landfall in Aurora Province, central Luzon, late Sunday. Severe conditions have already been reported in Catanduanes and parts of Bicol. The highest storm alert, signal number 5, remains in effect across southeastern Luzon, while Metro Manila is under signal number 3. Schools have suspended classes, local flights have been cancelled, and coastal communities have been cleared. In Santiago City, residents rushed to evacuation shelters ahead of the storm.
Whenever there's a typhoon, we often come here to take shelter because we live near a creek. Whenever there's a typhoon, our place gets flooded and the waters can reach over our heads. I'm scared because I have small grandchildren with me, along with my own children. So we decided to stay here at the evacuation area.
Fung Wong makes landfall just days after Typhoon Kalmegi, which killed nearly 200 people and left widespread devastation. Authorities warn that while the storm may weaken over land, it could still unleash flooding, landslides and powerful winds. Emergency responders remain on standby as the country braces for further impact.
Well, tensions between Afghanistan and Pakistan have resurfaced after talks aimed at preventing further border clashes collapsed. Despite the breakdown in talks, the Taliban says a ceasefire between the two neighbours remains in place.
The latest round of negotiations in Istanbul ended without agreement after Pakistan reportedly asked Kabul to take responsibility for its internal security, a condition the Taliban described as beyond Afghanistan's capacity. Pakistani Minister of Defence Khawaja Mohammad Asif said the Istanbul talks aimed at preventing renewed border clashes had collapsed, but added that the ceasefire would hold as long as there were no attacks from Afghan soil. In response, Taliban spokesman Zabihullah Mujahid said the ceasefire remains in effect and denied any violations from the Afghan side.
A ceasefire has been established with Pakistan. There has been no violation from our side, and it is being observed. Pakistan wanted the responsibility for its internal security to be transferred to Afghanistan, something that is beyond Afghanistan's capacity.
Mujahid said the Taliban wants to maintain peaceful and brotherly relations with Pakistan, while stressing that Afghanistan will defend its sovereignty if challenged.
The Muslim nation of Pakistan are brothers of the Afghans. The Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan wishes them goodwill and peace, and within the scope of its responsibility and necessity, it pledges cooperation.
Cross-border tensions have risen in recent months, including clashes last month that left dozens dead. Officials from both sides have acknowledged the need for stronger coordination, but no long-term security mechanism has been established. For now, the ceasefire remains in place, though the absence of a lasting agreement continues to cast uncertainty over the frontier.
Staying on this topic, Turkey is stepping up its diplomatic activity in that region after announcing that a high-level delegation will visit Islamabad amid tensions between Afghanistan and Pakistan. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan also stressed that sending humanitarian aid to Gaza is a duty of humanity. He added that the rapid completion of the peace process between Azerbaijan and Armenia will position Baku as a key architect of peace in the region.
Now, hundreds of people protested against the worsening air quality in Delhi on Sunday. Parents and environmental activists demonstrated at the India Gate War Memorial in the capital city, urging action to reduce the health impact of the smog.
Hundreds of people took to the streets of New Delhi wearing masks, demanding urgent action against a worsening air pollution. Demonstrators gathered at the iconic war memorial calling for stricter measures to clean the air and protect public health. Air quality regularly deteriorates during the winter months, exposing millions to hazardous levels of pollution. At least 80 protesters were detained as clashes broke out between demonstrators and police officers.
We are being detained in our own city for protesting against pollution.
Air quality experts warn that the smog is far from seasonal and say that exposure to fine particulate matter in Delhi's capital is shortening lives by nearly a dozen years. They say respiratory illnesses and cardiovascular disease are on the rise. Despite ongoing efforts by the government, including water sprinklers for dust mitigation and deploying smog guns in high-rises, the city remains one of the most polluted capitals in the world.
Now, COP30 has officially begun today in Brazil, but in the Amazon Delta, rising pollution, climate change and disrupted livelihoods are putting people and nature under unprecedented pressure. Orkan Amashov reports from the Amazon Delta, Brazil.
This is the place where the Amazon River actually unfurls into the delta. This is a place where the Amazon River actually meets the Atlantic Ocean, not far away from here. And the problems surrounding this river are actually multidimensional. It's not just about the water levels going up and down. It's also about this river, together with tributaries, being actually the lifeline to that massive Amazon basin, covering about 5.5 million square kilometers, which acts as the vital ingredient enabling our planet to receive enough oxygen. About 10% of our planet's oxygen actually comes from this Amazon basin. And Amazon, actually larger area, not just the basin, actually the rainforest together with the surrounding areas, they actually comprised of 7 million square kilometers, which actually accounts for 40% of South America, and much, much bigger than the entire geographical expanse of the European Union. So we're actually talking about something gargantuan and big. And the reality here that we're all facing is that these people's lives are not just about their own individual cases, but also about the entire human civilization.
Human health and the surrounding ecosystems are being threatened by what the locals say is the natural rhythm of flood and drought. But that pollution and climate change are disrupting that rhythm. The river that sustains life here is under pressure, and the people who depend on it are feeling the impact every day.
We can't catch fish anymore. The pollution is too much. The water is too hot. All the shrimp and fish have disappeared. We had to change jobs. Now we transport materials or work in factories. The river doesn't give us what we need.
Every 15 days the river fills, it floods the island, then goes down. This is our life. But now, the water comes polluted. With chemicals, it's no longer safe for fishing or agriculture.
For experts like Helena Fonseca Rodriguez, the Amazon's well-being is inseparable from public health.
Espero que sim, que eu espero que a COP traga soluções.
Changes in water levels and pollution have a brutal impact on public health. People get sick. The SUS, Brazil's public health system, is under pressure. COP30 must bring solutions that protect both nature and people. I really hope the COP brings solutions, above all solutions for people, for people's health. But there are so many negotiation tables that we don't really know how far we'll get.
Polluted waters, disrupted livelihoods, and communities struggling to survive. The future of the Amazon and the health of its people depends on action. Experts say that if the world does not respond promptly, the consequences will ripple far beyond these shores.
Now, every autumn, the Azerbaijani town of Goche bursts into colour and flavour for one of the country's most beloved traditions, the Pomegranate Festival. From music and dance to competitions and crafts, it's a vibrant celebration of culture, harvest and community spirit. Our correspondent, Chimnaz Shala, has more from Goche.
I'm reporting from Göçay Pomegranate Festival, one of Azerbaijan's most colorful celebrations. Here, everything revolves around the pomegranate, the fruit, its sweet flavor, and the pride of this region. The streets are alive with music, dance, and endless displays of pomegranate products. This year, visitors can see over 50 different types of pomegranates and taste local juices, jams, and desserts that made from them. The festival also hosts competitions like largest pomegranate and showcases traditional music and dance performances. It is not just a festival, it's a true celebration of tradition, harvest and community spirit that brings Göçay to life every year. First held in 2006, the festival was later recognized by UNESCO as a part of world's intangible cultural heritage. I'm Chimnaz Shahlar with Zohrab Shirinov for A News.
I do like a good pomegranate from time to time. I hope you do as well, Lou. Well, let's take a short break. When we return, we will look at the sports news.
Hello and welcome to Prime Time. What a show we've got lined up for you. In a complex world, clarity is power. Live, diplomacy dissected in a spin-free environment. That's Prime Time with me, Guy Schoen, weekdays on A News.
Partnership with Azerbaijan will allow Israel also to enjoy some of the benefits.
What makes Azerbaijan a uniquely strategic partner for Israel?
Peace process with Armenia, which will bring more and more stability to both countries.
One of the key elements of that Donald Trump's Gaza ceasefire agreement is delivery of the humanitarian aid to Gaza.
More and more humanitarian aid entering Gaza from various checkpoints. We cannot allow a terrorist organization to sit on our borders.
Welcome back to Daybreak here on A News. We're now joined by Nick Summerby for the sport. Nick, hello, and can you tell us about what has happened on F1 as the extraordinary win by McLaren's Lando Norris at the Sao Paulo Grand Prix has made headlines?
Yeah, big weekend in Sao Paulo in Brazil. There's 3 races to go as Lando Norris looks like he steps that little bit closer to getting his first championship. He started off in pole position and finished the race as number 1. That was a really good effort as well by Verstappen. Verstappen has said, I'm not involved in the championship. That's me finished now. I'm out of it. I don't know if that's a little bit of mind games, but if he can win the next 2 races or try and get back in there, you never know with Verstappen, but it is looking good for Lando Norris. Antonelli finished second. But we look next, it could be all done in Qatar. The next race is on the 23rd in Vegas. Then we go to Qatar. That's where Lando Norris could seal his victory. That's if all goes well for him. And then Abu Dhabi after that, though. But it was a big weekend for Lando Norris. As I said, he just stepped closer to looking to get his first championship.
Indeed. And now we move over to the Premier League. What is taking place?
Big weekend in the Premier League. Arsenal drop points. They draw at Sunderland where they think they were going to win it. Trossard looked like he got the victory to make it 2-1. Then all of a sudden, Sunderland with that fighting spirit, my old team, managed to make it 2-2. So then our eyes went to the big game. Manchester City versus Liverpool. We didn't really know what we got. Is Pep's team in transition? Are they ready for the title? Liverpool, big result against Real Madrid and Aston Villa last weekend. Whoever wins this, can they make it difficult for Arsenal? It was all about Manchester City. Manchester City are in the title race. Pep Guardiola's got that little bit of he's got that smile on his face. He knows that he's got a team there. Haaland misses a penalty, but then goes to score a goal. They end up winning 3-0. Liverpool were, okay, they had a little bit of luck because they managed to get back into the game with Van Dijk, but the goal was cancelled. But it was all about Manchester City. Other results as well. Everton, they're going into their game at home. They only had 1 victory out of 8. They managed to get a victory over Fulham. Spurs against Manchester United, 2-2. Both teams looked like they were going to win it, but 2-2 was possibly fair there. Chelsea, 3-0. You're looking at Rob Edwards at the moment, looking like he's going to be the next Wolves manager. They've not won a game yet. Now, he's at Middlesbrough, was at Middlesbrough, and he's just going to Wolves. I don't know if that's a good move. Middlesbrough could make it to the Premier League, and Wolves could go down. He used to play for them. There's emotions involved with it. I think it's a little bit of a strange move there for Rob Edwards. Keep your eye out for that, and we'll let you know when that happens. Palace 0-0. Forest again. Sean Dyche, another victory for him. And obviously we said about Manchester City. Another one from Villa. Well done to Villa. They're up to 6th place at the moment. So if you're looking at there, Arsenal, City, Chelsea. So it's 4 points Arsenal and City. And then Sunderland, look at Sunderland there in 4th from Spurs. So from Spurs, Villa, United and Liverpool all got 18 points. So it's pretty tight. But Liverpool, are they out of the title race? You know, they've lost 5. It's not looking good for them at the moment, though. But we have an international break coming up shortly, and I'm sure when they come back, we can start getting back to business, though. But a big weekend, as said there, for Pep Guardiola on his 1,000th. It's a 1,000th game of being a manager, and if you look at his win ratio, it's over 71%. So congratulations to Pep Guardiola.
Yes, definitely. Well, there's loads. That's a lot of updates in that. And then what you can tell me about the European leagues? What's going on?
Well, in France, Marseille, that's getting to be a bit of a battle. Big result from Marseille. They won 3-0. It was down to Paris Saint-Germain. They won against Lens. So Paris go top there on 27. Marseille just underneath it. Lens there on 25 and Strasbourg below that. But it's not as dominant as what it usually is with Paris Saint-Germain. There's a battle there, and it's great to see the old two arch enemies going up against each other and seeing Marseille. Marseille are up for the fight this season, so that should be an interesting one to watch as it goes along. Also in Spain as well, it was Real Madrid. Let's not forget a disappointing result against Liverpool in the Champions League. They needed to bounce back, they didn't. They could only manage a draw which was 0-0, and it gave the opportunity for Barcelona, who came back, who was back on the score sheet, that legend Lewandowski. 4-2 they won. So Real Madrid 31 points, Barcelona 28, Villarreal 26 after that. So as you can see, that Atletico Madrid, keep your eye on those. They're really starting to hit form as well, but they are some distance away from Real Madrid. But not a good week for Real Madrid with those 2 defeats. But as usual, it's all really about Barcelona and Real Madrid, and it's about Barcelona this weekend managed just to gain a couple more points to get up behind Real Madrid. And also as well in Italy, once I'm on my roll, I'm on my roll.
Keep going,
Don't
Nick.
Stop me.
Keep going.
I get too excited. Italy as well. Napoli lose 2-0. Inter Milan are now top of the league. Roma with a big result as well, winning 2-0 at Udinese. AC Milan only could manage a 2-2. So Napoli, who were the champions last year under Conte, has got a lot to do as well there, though. So over those leagues there, it's really interesting as well. So and it's business as usual as well in Germany. But it's this is it, going back to it here now. Napoli dropped down to 4th now, and then all of a sudden you've got Milan. Just look how tight it is there, and the game's there, and then all of a sudden at the top, 24 to 22, it could change at any point, and it will do as well. Inter, who were unlucky last season when they just lost out with Napoli, can they go that one step further and go and get the championship? But it's a league to really watch out for. I'm really intrigued with it.
Definitely. And what can we expect this week then?
This week, well, we go into the international. It's all the World Cup qualifiers. Let's not forget the end of the season. It's America, Canada and Mexico. We have a World Cup. First 48-team World Cup. Well, we still got the qualifications. So we have this. Domestic football will take a couple of weeks off. So you have this. But next weekend, I would say, there's only one thing if you like your boxing. It's Chris Eubank and Conor Benn. We saw the first one. What a fight that was. It was just a grueling match. It was absolutely fantastic. Breathtaking to watch. Well, they go again at Tottenham Stadium. So, I don't know. I'm going to go for Ben Mee this time. I know he's of a smaller weight, but I just think Ben, I think in the press conferences, that is what you've got to watch this week. The press conferences, when they go in to make weight at the end, and you start seeing the pair of them really getting at each other. And there's that real bit of beef, what their fathers had, that they really don't like each other. So watch the build-up with it, and it will not let you down. That's next Saturday night. So get yourself, all eyes will be on the Tottenham Stadium. So it's a must-watch fight. So very exciting.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Nick Summerby there. Thank you with the sport.
The historic city of Bethlehem is set to celebrate a festive Christmas this year after 2 years impacted first by the pandemic and then by the conflict in Gaza. With tourists returning, the city is reviving cherished holiday traditions and giving a much needed boost to families and local businesses that rely on the festive season.
Bethlehem is preparing to bring back full Christmas celebrations this year after 2 seasons of reduced events due to the war in Gaza. Located in the West Bank, the city felt the wider impact of the conflict as tourism dropped sharply. Now, with visitors beginning to return, Officials say restoring Christmas traditions is not only about faith and culture, it is also essential to livelihoods in a city that depends on the holiday season for income. Manja Square and the Church of the Nativity are being decorated again. The Christmas tree lighting ceremony, a central symbol of the season here, is being brought back after 2 years of much quieter observances.
This year will be an amazing Christmas. It will be a different Christmas. We will light the tree of Christmas, the tree of Bethlehem.
The war led to cancelled tours, empty hotels and closed businesses. For many families, the holiday season is the most important time of the year for earnings. As the home of the Church of the Nativity and widely recognised as the birthplace of Jesus, Bethlehem holds deep spiritual significance for Christians around the world, making it a major centre of pilgrimage.
And it's been a dream of mine for 50 plus years since my parents gave me a little Bible with the pictures in it, and being able to see this in real life and not imagining things anymore.
Inside the Church of the Nativity, worshippers gather at the grotto, where services and prayers are gradually filling the space once more. Church staff say even modest increases in visitors help sustain the religious and cultural life of the city. For shop owners and street sellers, the return of tourists is directly tied to recovering from financial losses.
We had Corona for 2 years, so there was no tourism. But after Corona, we were able to breathe a little bit for a few months, and then the war happened. We got really out of breath. It's been 2 years in a below-zero level. But today, we hope that God provides for us and tourism goes back to how it used to be.
As Bethlehem prepares to light its tree and welcome pilgrims again, the city is working to restore not only a cherished tradition, but also the livelihoods that depend on it each December.
Goodness, is it Christmas coming up already? It always feels like it's too early.
Never too early.
Oh, you're one of those who like a good Christmas
I've had
shop.
Christmas songs playing. I really have. I've done all my Christmas shopping.
All of your Christmas shopping already?
I mean, I hope my girlfriend's asleep or my sisters are asleep because I've got all their presents.
Oh,
I could say it on air right now and just bank that they're not watching.
You're a very organised man.
It
Whereas I am not one of those people. I'm not very late, but I'm definitely not early.
We get better deals now.
I don't know about the deals. I think they hike up prices, but I'm being very cynical.
Do you have a favourite Christmas song, favourite Christmas part of your meal?
You know, when you hear the Mariah Carey, All I Want for Christmas is a key classic, which I can never get away from, or I'm, Thinking of a White Christmas and Let It Snow. So those are the very much keeps me in the holiday spirit.
There are certain like singers or things who I'm convinced are frozen for 11 months, then they come out of, and they thaw.
One of those is Michael Bublé, who
yeah.
I love. I'll just put it out there. And Mariah Carey.
Yeah.
These are the two that thaw.
Yeah, voices like velvet. Yeah.
Like velvet. Well done on your Christmas shopping. Well, thank you for watching Daybreak with me, Nadia Jani.
And Amelia Brown. You're up to date with the world news for this morning. From all of us in the studio, thank you and see you tomorrow.